City, different cities focusing mostly on contamination and remediation. So this will be a light talk. I will not go into much technicalities, but give some perspective on things I hear a lot. Urban soils have frequently been dismissed as degraded, inert substrates incapable of supporting ecosystem functions or even meaningful food production. In reality, they support a lot of ecosystem services, from water regulation to carbon sequestration to moderation of temperature, biodiversity support, and it can provide food production through agriculture and farming in urban spaces. I will share with you three common myths or topics people love to share with me. I used to live in New York City, and people would ask me, "What do you do for a living?" I'll say, "I'm a soil scientist." But look, there is no soil around. So the assumption there is no real soil in the city dismisses the ongoing pedogenic processes that occur even in highly disturbed landscapes, and overlooks the potential for urban agriculture and ecosystem restorations. These are my favorite images from New York City, were collected by USDA or captured by USDA team when they did the New York City reconnaissance soil survey, and they found New York City has about 27% of open space, and it's where the majority of the field investigations during the survey took place. 70 soil series were investigated. 32 of them were developed in human transported materials, and 38 naturally occurring parent materials like glacial till, outwash. You can see here some even aeolian deposits. The natural and anthropogenic soils in New York exhibit a wide range of physical, chemical, and mineralogical processes. This is on the right corner, my favorite three anthropogenic soils. I even had this, you don't see my mouse, on the right corner, soil in the landfill as a printout in my office. So whoever comes in knew what I was doing for a living. Just you cannot see the wording, but this is the dredged material from the Hudson River that is dumped in Floyd Benefield in Brooklyn. Basically, for the ships to go through the Hudson, over time they have to collect the dredged material, then they need to put it somewhere. So these layers are not natural horizons; they are layers of the sediment accumulated there for years. And the top right is the coal ash. It's from Staten Island. But there's a lot going on in those anthropogenic urban soils. This is from my former colleague who did a postdoc and worked with Richard Shaw, who is retired to USDA, soil scientist in New York and New Jersey. So they did this study when they compared natural soils and urban soil, park soils in New York specifically. They had 11 profiles. Here you can see 6 of anthropogenic. They were looking specifically at microbial diversity between these different profiles. You can see they divided in the group of low artifact fill, less than 10%. It's human transported earthy materials or sediments, very sophisticated pedology, you can see. And on the right side, it's a group of poor or amended soil with some man-made materials. In artifacts were more than 10%. So urban soils in New York, you can see, can be very heterogeneous. And what they found is that natural or built from human fill, those profiles actually support microbial diversity. And human-altered soils with more artifacts tends to show even greater microbial diversity. But all profiles have community shifts with depths and horizons. Microbial structure is shaped by history and human impact, with unique disturbance-altered or adapted bacteria. There were bacteria found even in engineered soils, and soils, there's specific bacteria, not going into details, that were found in soils formed from coal ash and constructed debris. Compost fixes everything. You're laughing because you've heard this too, right? I worked a lot with some gardeners whose solution is to add compost. And they would grow vegetables in compost and their raised beds, sometimes just like dumping bags of compost in it. And it works, for them. So the belief that compost fixes everything actually ignores the variability of compost feedstocks, the potential for contamination introduction, and physical limitations posed by compacted soil. Here's just an example of a compost facility that I will show you for fun, but it's not showing for some reason. I did check my presentation before and it was fine. Okay, well, you can imagine the compost process. Yeah, it was just one of the days we went to maybe it is BQ Rod in Brooklyn. Okay, I took my students there, but in case you've never been to a compost facility in urban environment, there's one. Compost application, we know it adds organic matter to soil. It improves the soil structure, it reduces bulk density, increases porosity and water retention. It also promotes plant growth, water infiltration, boosts microbial biomass, diversity, enzymatic activities. I think had some freezing issues with the video, but you got the idea. It's very common in urban spaces to use this compost. They have lots of different benefits, including also adding micronutrients, improving cation exchange capacity, and even suppressing pathogens. Oh my gosh. Let's move. Okay. But what compost cannot do is actually fixing salinity, because it can add salts and sodium into the soil, because depending on the source of the feedstock of this compost, and actually can contain lots of salts. More specific treatments would be certainly needed for the soil affected soils. Compost nutrient content varies drastically, and we cannot ignore soil tests. Very often, I also hear from some people who know their plants very well, I don't need a soil test, my plants tell everything. But I feel like it's like, getting a sick instead of doing a blood test to prevent it. So we really need to do the testing and not just rely on the description of the bag of what was in that compost or fertilizer. So it's over-reliance on compost can be detrimental for plants and also cause nutrient imbalances, and proper nutrient management is really important. Also compost, and I'm a big fan of, and my research shows that compost does help remediating heavy metals. However, there is a limit to it, because over time compost will break down, and organic matter, it has many certain number of years, depending where we are, to stabilize or bind those metals. But over time organic matter degrades, and those metals might be back in the environment. So we really need to use integrated remediation protocols. While compost can improve structure, it can also, but it may not always alleviate severe compaction or fix the hard pans. It would still require mechanical interventions. Oftentimes, people or gardeners may use pure or excessive compost, but it can create water-lacking conditions, nutrient lockup, and poor root development. And of course, if these composts are not managed properly or prepared correctly, the compost applications may even increase some greenhouse gas emissions, on a local scale. It can have some odor, but one of the biggest issues is microplastics, because a lot of plastics are found in compost, and some of them you can visually see, but a lot of them are microplastics. So as much as we want to use it, it also comes with a trade-off. Okay, my favorite one is sunflower-based phytoremediation for lead is effective. How many of you heard this one before, if you work in this field, right? So there are some studies that do show that sunflowers work. But this view that sunflowers can just fix lead, and I hear a lot from urban gardeners that they plant the sunflowers. It actually oversimplifies plant-soil contaminant interactions and ignores the key site-specific factors like contamination type, speciation, bioavailability. Without amendments to increase lead bioavailability, no plant, even sunflowers, has proven suitable for lead phytoextraction. Evidence shows that sunflowers retain most lead in their roots with little translocation to shoots, making phytoextractions largely ineffective under normal field conditions or typical field conditions. Lead is strongly binding to soil particles, and low bioavailability further limit uptake by sunflowers. So without chelating agents or pH modifications, sunflowers absorb very little lead into their above ground tissues, and most lead remains in the roots. This is complicating, of course, for removal and harvest. Attempts to improve lead solubility for remediation have some risks, and there could be increased potential for example, groundwater contamination. And field studies confirm that high sunflower germination but low shoot root translocation by concentration factors typically less than 1, meaning harvested shoots remove little lead, which stays locked in root tissues. So it's not as effective as most people think. So many of these myths persist not just because of gaps in research, but because we rarely include those most impacted by poor urban soil health: residents, gardeners, land stewards in our process. That's where citizen science, or more proper to say participatory science, comes in. With the help of Richard Puet, he helped me to put together my paper and framework for participatory science in urban soil research. It's how we can involve science citizens or volunteers in our projects. This is paper not just for urban soil. Those techniques and ideas that I share can be really adopted in many different disciplines. But urban soil myths crumble when the community holds the shovel. When a resident takes a sample from their backyard and sees XRF, X-ray fluorescent analyzer that we use, reading light up for lead, then the idea that there is no real soil in the city disappears instantly. When gardeners track infiltration and pH after applying compost, they start asking better questions than even some scientists do. What I've learned through the participatory science, working with the communities in New York and Louisiana in my previous position, is that the soil data alone doesn't change people's minds, but participation does. So we really need to integrate them, people, in our research. And people trust what they help create. And the trust is what ultimately drives better science, better policy, and safer, greener cities. So I invite you to check out this paper, and maybe you will find some tools useful for your research as well. So if you want the public to trust soil science, they must see themselves in it. If we want to bust myths, we need to give people tools to question them. So this is one of the tools I created. You probably already seen it, the Urban Soil Guide, published by Springer. Some of you reviewed this work, so thank you. And some of you used even in the college courses already. It's 20 activities designed for professionals, soil educators, but also nerdy gardeners. I like to say people who really want to dig in their own backyards without committing to a soil course at the university. It's each lab activity is like a mini project: soil pH, soil texture, structure. Nothing new, but something that's applicable to anyone who wants to investigate what's right under their feet. Some people use this, like Maxine and her courses. I used my courses before. So if you don't have a big lab, it's also a good resource to use in smaller courses. So getting the science right requires getting the public involved. And for that, we need to create tools, guides, infographics, lots of different materials that they can use to learn from, but also opportunities to involve in project with us. Thank you so much for your attention. Here's my contact information. If you have any ideas to share or you would like to collaborate, please stay in touch with me, and I'll be here for the rest of the day in case you have some questions afterwards. Thank you so much.